That's where the blue belt blue sets in, right? If jiu-jitsu is a roadmap and you learn the highways, you might be just fine to play. But then it can get really intimidating when you put all the scenery in there. You put now you go into a 3D map, there's trees, houses, back roads. It's like, geez, it's just overwhelming. And so then that's where I think paralysis can come in to play with self-doubt, because you're not sure which road to take now, which is going to be the fastest. I don't know. I have 20 options. Which one would be the fastest? Like, you're probably not going to use all 20 of those.
Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a 5th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's also the 5th American to receive a black belt from Master Renzo Gracie. He's the creator of the Williams Guard, and he's also the co-founder of Carbine Industries, a really successful gi and no-gi brand. You may recognize his voice because he's one of the most respected jiu-jitsu commentators in the game. He's also a longtime academy owner and a highly respected instructor. These days teaching out of his own academy, Renzo Gracie Nashville in Nashville, Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to be joined today for the 5th time on the podcast by Mr. Shawn Williams. How are you today, Shawn?
Yes, thank you. You may recognize my voice.
That's like, amazing to be here, buddy.
He's gone he had some kind of operation done. I don't know what's going on here. What is that?
Yeah, no, it's amazing to be here, buddy. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the Fanatics fans, and all. You know, it's gonna be fun. This episode's gonna be great.
Dude, it's so great. It's so great to be talking with you again, man. It's always a blast. How's life in Tennessee, man? Catch us up. What's life
awesome, man. Yeah, life is great. My family loves Nashville. We just had a daughter, she's 7 months old now. So that's, yeah, thank you. We've been having a lot of fun. The communities are fantastic here, but then as well, the gym has like basically outgrown our spot. So that we're gonna have some interesting things coming forward, hopefully very soon. But just the growth of the people at the gym, of a fantastic community. The competitors are really starting to get dialed in now with some great results, but overall, we just love Nashville. You know, it's a great place.
Every time I hear the word Tennessee, for several years I lived in Atlanta, and I used to see the tourism commercials all the time. So now when I hear the name Tennessee, I can't think of that state without hearing the dude's voice. He'd always say something like, you know, if you want to discover like simple charm of country life, come to Tennessee. And it's like every time I see Tennessee now, I just think Tennessee.
But simple life, Tennessee.
But dude, that's awesome, man. Congratulations on the 2nd edition. How's your son doing? How's Annie? How's everyone?
Everybody's great. My son is 6.5, which is crazy. Time flies.
God, that's nuts.
Is super passionate about a few different sports, and we'll see where that goes. I'm very excited for him, and he's just having a blast. It's like, yeah, he goes to a fantastic school. We're just really blessed and have a great community. So, and my wife loves it here. Right now she's taking care of the kids, but slowly but surely, like, yeah, it's time to get back to work now. So I was like, okay. So she's getting her, like, some of the things that she used to do. She used to do fashion photography. And so that's we're starting to finally have the time for her to she's just wanting to gear up. And so that's exciting. And it's just an exciting place. We have a great group of friends, and just couldn't feel more at home and any luckier than what we are. So we're lucky.
Now, Shawn, something that obviously is right at the top of the list of things I want to talk to you about. You're going to be commentating ADCC, and right now we're in an interesting time right now in jiu-jitsu, aren't we? So
we certainly are.
From your perspective as part of the ADCC team, what has this been like with this whole CJI versus ADCC thing going on?
Yeah, man, it's been such an interesting thing. Like, I don't have any dog in any fight, right? So I just want the sport of jiu-jitsu to grow, and and I've obviously had time to think about it. I have never spoke to Craig or anything like that. So I just hear through the grapevine, like, what, the motives are. And I honestly believe, he's got very good, his goals are good, right? So if we can get the athletes getting more money, that is a great thing. That lets our sport grow. It lets professionalism grow. It allows people to just focus on their training. I'm all for that. Buddy, I'm all for coaches getting paid great too. What about just the coaches? Come on, man. Wrestling coaches get like $2 million a year. What about jiu-jitsu coaches? Anyway, that's beside the point. So I'm all for that. What I do feel like is the way that it was, potentially the way that he went about it, maybe not be the best for the community. So you have this juggernaut in ADCC, and you know, I like I said, I'm commentating ADCC. I committed to that, and I'll be happy to do that. But on the other side, you have CJI, and I mean, without that, under 80 is going to be ridiculous. I mean, it's just going to be nuts. I can't wait to go study all the tapes from those crazy maniacs. It absolutely, in some ways, crushed some of ADCC. I mean, it made me go like, rats. I really wanted to talk about that guy's match. It's going to be educated for you know, some education for the world, but we'll get that later. But it certainly made a big dent, huge impact on just what's going to happen in ADCC. And again, you look at both sides. If you look at the good on both sides, good on ADCC, it is the number one no-gi tournament in the world, right? It's the most prestigious no-gi tournament. When people think of a title that they want to win in no-gi, that's the one. That's the title. There is no question that that's the title, number one title. ADCC. And that I don't think that's going to go away. That's never going to go away. And so you get the world's best athletes getting into this rigorous tournament. The thing is, it is rigorous. I mean, a lot of people have to go through a trial that's now like 280 people big just to win a trials. And then once they win the trials, they qualify and get into this unbelievable no-gi tournament. And so that's never going away. You've got this prestigious thing. Then if you look at CJI, the prize money is the best that we've ever had in the grappling community. So then you're like, man, wow. $1 million to win a tournament. Incredible. And it's an incredible thing. But when you put it at the same time, I believe the only people that are really going to get hurt are the competitors and the fans. So fans can go back and watch anytime, right? So that's not really that big of a deal. I think, a fan can go study video. They may not be able to go to the second day of CGI live, or they have to choose, right? I'm going to go to the first day of ADCC, or am I going to go to the finals of that? I got to make a choice. But you can always watch it online. I mean, that's something that fans can always do. It's not quite the same as live, but you don't have that same anticipation. But for learning, hey, cool, I can go watch it online anytime I want. But in my opinion, it's the athletes that are really the ones that are forced to choose, so to speak, between something that might have been a lifelong goal in ADCC and money. And not just a little bit of money. It's like life-changing money, right? So when you put that on an athlete, if you're the athlete and you have a chance to win, well, I mean, you kind of owe it to yourself to go win $1 million. I mean, because then what you can do with that is essentially go win the next ADCC, right? So but to choose between the two, that I felt like wasn't really good for the athlete themselves. I feel like the athletes themselves would have been better, especially all these guys getting ready for ADCC, if the event would have been later, because you've got the whole year long, right? So, but I understand the motive behind it. So the motive behind it, from what I get, is, hey, the athletes need to be paid. I understand that. I think that's 100% true. I don't run ADCC, so I'm not the one in charge. I don't know what money comes in, comes out. I don't know what's invested or what's lost. I have no idea. But you can say rationally that, hey, if you're able to rent out T-Mobile and it's profitable, why not keep it smaller and just give the athletes the difference, right? Because the show the last time was ridiculous. I mean, it was amazing. And I felt like, good, we've arrived. And I think 10,000, I think there was like 11,000 people there. That to me is the pinnacle of what grappling is. I mean, I think college wrestling can have upwards of 18, 20,000 people inside a stadium, but that's a little different. That's way different in my opinion, because you've got the college, which is the parents and the community. That's totally different. That's a team that people get behind. You're always going to be behind a team more than you're going to be behind an individual. But if every individual that fought in ADCC, if all of their academies said, that's our teammate, we're going to go support him, then they would have 50,000, 100,000 people in those arenas. That's just not the way that jiu-jitsu is, though. This doesn't quite work like that. It doesn't work like a college sport, a professional sport. It doesn't work like that. We're not quite there with the same sort of like, hey, my athlete is my teammate, and so therefore I should root for him. I'm on team whoever. We're not quite there yet. Although, So the difference of if we're ever going to make it to a 20,000, or we don't know that, but rationally you could say, hey, whatever the difference is, give it to the athletes. Give money to the athletes. I think that's very rational. But I still think maybe people could go, you might be able to go about that a slightly different way, because at the end of the day, CJI and ADCC, there's no comparison between the two. They're not apples to apples. Yeah. They're apples and oranges. When an athlete can make $1 million, they should try to make $1 million. That's what they should do. They absolutely should. Why wouldn't you? And so if there was ever a date of a tournament that was, hey, the prize money is $1 million, nobody in their right mind is going to try to put a tournament on that day. Nobody, because no one can compete with that unless there's another very wealthy individual that wants to burn through some money. And so if that doesn't happen, then you wouldn't put it on the same day. You'd say like, cool, you guys can have whatever weekend you want because you have $1 million prize money. We are the most prestigious, so we'll choose to do this one so the athletes can get the most prestige and they can make the most money. And that's what we offer. That's it. So they're not apples to apples, which is also, I think a lot of people are getting caught up in like, it's not Craig Jones. It's not Craig Jones. I like Craig's a nice guy. It's not him. It's not him making this happen. It's a very wealthy individual making this happen, unless he's putting his own million up, which I don't know. Maybe he is. If he is, then I apologize, Mr. Craig. You can put up your own money, you put up your own millions, and then it really is about you, isn't it? But it's not. It's not about him. So it's not about Craig Jones Invitational. It's about, so whoever the money guy is, that's the money guy's tournament, and it's not apples to apples. So we can't get caught up in that. It's $1 million tournament. Man, that's amazing. Athletes, go get your millions. If you can win that, go get your millions. And then you can then say, okay, great. But then you can also keep the argument going that says, hey, yeah, all sports need to make more. I think all of our athletes are at that time. We're at that time, man. Our sport is huge. And I'm all on board on that. Make more money. IBJJF, they could pay their athletes. I'm sure. Again, I don't know how much money they make, but I'm sure there's probably some way that they can rationalize and some means to go this, hey, you know what? We figured out a way to incentivize people to compete on these things. We figured out some bonus money. We figured out a professional event that's fun to watch. That we're at that time where I think that's absolutely doable for the majority of events. So I get it. I'm bummed. Myself as a commentator. I'm and like an enthusiast. I'm bummed that I don't get to call some of these guys matches because they're gonna be so fun. But I'll just watch them later. It doesn't matter. But it is a little bit bummed. I'm a little bit bummed that it's sort of separates or creates a bit of drama when there's actually no real drama. Again, you offer $1 million, and if somebody says no, that they should do it. They should. If they're invited and, hey man, yeah, sure. Go do that. Go win the $1 million. There's no comparison between the two. Prestige will get you a very long way. But then what are you left with? If you win the most prestigious title, what are you left with to make money? So if you win the most prestigious title, then, hey, cool. Now you can fight in pro events. And you could probably negotiate for a lot more money. That's great. But if you can win $1 million, if you literally can win $1 million, then it's probably going to take a couple years to get $1 million, or at least a year of effort, maybe 2 to get $1 million. So then you're left with instructionals. Can you sell instructionals? I don't know. Is every competitive champion a good teacher? No, absolutely not. They're not. I've seen world champions teach them something. I'm like, you're an athlete and you got some really bad things to work in your sport. Like, man, but does that mean everyone should learn from them? No, but maybe they should. Now, if you market it as, hey, support me, I won ADCC, and please help me support my competitive career, and people like the person. Well, that's another thing. Yeah. Then they might make $1 million overnight, to be really honest. So apples and oranges, it's not. I don't believe it's apples and apples. I believe that the fans, the competitors now had to choose. And I believe, you can't hold them accountable for anything. If they choose to go off to the $1 million, geez, I don't blame them whatsoever. If they chose to stay as prestigious, I don't blame them for that either. No problem. You get $10,000 if you lose, I think. So disparity between first and second is $990,000 or 900, whatever it is, $989,999, whatever they're paying them, $10,001, I heard. Yeah. So there's a big discrepancy between first and second, but I'm excited for both. I mean, I really am. I'm excited to go watch what's going on in CGI when I'm done. CJI. I always want to call it CGI.
I do the same. I've been doing that constantly.
Yeah. Craig's got to change his name to instead of Jones spelled with a J, it's gonna have to be spelled with a G, just because CGI is so. But yeah, I'm excited for both. And the only thing I said is I feel like the competitors probably got a little dig in their heart, like, oh shoot, what do I do? What is the right decision here? Obviously, if you can win $1 million, yeah, it's big deal.
Shawn, this is a question. I've asked this to a couple different guests over the last months as this topic's been pretty hot. On the topic of prestige, you mentioned that currently ADCC is the most prestigious no-gi championship in the world. Wholeheartedly agree, no question about it. Do you think over time, though, considering that CJI is sustainable and that they can keep on doing this every year or every 2 years like ADCC does, do you think potentially that the amount of money they're offering could pull some of that prestige their way, and basically the people with the deeper pockets would be attracting more athletes and having the best guys available?
100%. Oh, definitely. 100%. I mean, it's like, if you can sustain that prize money, more power to that. I'm all for it. I think that is where I would love for the sport to go too, is just like athletes, or everybody involved is getting paid. I mean, we are in one of the most rigorous sports on the planet, man. Like MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, it's the professionals that train day in, day out, beat their bodies up as much as any other professional athlete. It's just that we've got to figure out a way to turn professional athletes into that, where they're making 6 figures, they're making 7 figures when they're, these contracts that are like, ooh, yeah. And that's, I think, again, that comes back to the community too. That's a community thing as well. It's everybody. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that play jiu-jitsu now. That should be hard. That shouldn't be hard. It's everybody saying, hey, as a community, these are the professional athletes. Let's get behind some organizations. Let's get behind something, do pay-per-views or whatever. But then I think that's also like, if you have a company like this, like, we don't know who the money guy is. We don't know if it's sustainable. Hopefully it is. And it turns into a yearly event. I'd love that. I think that'd be fantastic. And then if that happens, how did you do it? Maybe another one can do it. And then like, hey, wow, cool. Now there's multitude of organizations that are paying money. Probably the community probably just would need to see, like, where's all this money going? If 100,000 people are buying pay-per-views, where's it all going? Does it make sense? If someone opened their books like that would probably be pretty, you'd probably have some real confidence in a company. If they're like, okay, if we want 100,000 pay-per-views at $25, here's how the money's going to go. And the CEO is going to get this, and this person's going to get this, and this person, if you publicize that, you might get 100,000 pay-per-view buys. If people are like, dude, the money's not just getting inherited by some top person. And like, then they're just like, yeah, athlete, you're getting $500, but somebody's making a lot of money. I think that would maybe help. I don't know. Anyway, that was a little off topic.
No,
but I do feel like, yeah, if someone can sustain that, then sure, they're going to have the best athletes. Of course. Rightfully so. So.
Jiu-Jitsu really is one of the most rigorous sports in the world. And it's also for the very longest time, it's been a very kind of fringe sport. I'm almost seen it kind of on the same like level as like say skateboarding or something, although skateboarding has a lot of money. Basically there's no college version of it. There's no Olympic version of it. So it really is this kind of fringe activity. And so to see, and then also the window for success and the window for accomplishment is rather short, because as you know, you have maybe 10 years or so as a peak athlete in the sport before you hurt your knee or you have an injury or whatever. So being able to see this kind of money and this kind of attention and this kind of love being brought into the sport's really cool.
It is. And hopefully this doesn't hopefully it is sustainable and it doesn't put such an impact. Like I want ADCC to keep going. But again, and it hopefully it can make the right impact and then cool. Peace. Let's keep that going. Sure. Athletes have the right to choose. And then maybe they start to win both. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's hopefully if it's sustainable, it'll be turned into a very, very good thing. Yeah.
Well, either way, Shawn, I really look forward to hearing you commentate. Any event you commentate, I'm usually tuning in, but ADCC is going to be a big one.
And if there's one next year and they reach out to me, but I'd love to do that. Are you kidding me? That'd be unbelievable for sure. I want to get both divisions are crazy, but like the under 80, holy smokes, that's
nuts.
That's a good one.
Totally
nuts.
That's
a talent rich weight class.
Yeah. What are your predictions for the Superfights at ADCC with Gordon taking on Pena and Simoes back to back?
I think it's really depends on how Gordon feels. If he's healthy, if he's training, he's a pretty tough cookie to beat. I think the only real way now, obviously everybody has their day, but tactics to beat him at his best, tactics is about the only way to really find holes in his game. But then again, look what he did on the last ADCC, right? He, John is behind the guy behind Gordon. They literally turned human beings into like a cartoon sucker, or a donkey. Like that's what happened. Like, I took you down. Yeah. Oh, that's where you wanted to be. Oh God. And you can see them turn into a sucker and they get submitted. So, it was I'd said this before. It was like, man, not only was he skillfully just masterful, but tactically, like, dude, strategy and tactics were just probably the best of the entire group. And so, yeah, he's a world-class individual. So I don't, those guys have their work cut out for them for sure. Pena is an interesting guy. When the right Pena shows up, he has entanglements and weird positions that we saw it when they fought last time, right? He got him in a leg entanglement that I don't think Gordon knew what to do. But Philippe couldn't capitalize. And so, he is capable of those things. Whether he will put it forth on that day and he's physically prepared and mentally prepared, only that time will show up. But again, if Gordon's can't physically prepare right either, it won't be the same person. So we'll have to just wait and see. But I would say that if it's Gordon and Gordon shows up and he's on and he's healthy and he's trained, he's a very difficult person to beat without like super, super sharp tactics and also a lot of skill.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. Either way, August is going to be a great month for grappling fans. So it's going to be pretty incredible. Yeah, Shawn, last time you were on the show, we discussed building a game as a newer practitioner. If you don't mind today, I'd love to switch that around a bit and talk about refining skills as an advanced practitioner. We obviously have a lot of white belts and blue belts that tune into the show who are, eager to absorb jiu-jitsu information. So I admit that sometimes on the show, I'm really focused on bringing attention to skill development for beginners. But I'd like to switch that around, focus on upper ranks today. So let me ask you this. obviously there's levels to this art, and there's when you're a white belt, looking across the mats, it can feel like you're a million miles away from being a black belt. But something that many students find unsettling is as they climb the ranks, once they become blue or even purple or even brown belts, they can still sometimes look across the mat and still feel miles and miles away from the black belts. And obviously, depending on how elite the room is that you're training in, that feeling can be more and more intense. What do you think are some metrics that indicate someone's truly making progress and getting better, getting closer to being a black belt in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's, because what we said earlier, right? There's really no governing body in jiu-jitsu. Now IBJJF is as good as it gets with a governing body, right? But they don't have standards, right? So there's no standards on your coach. And so that literally can change from gym to gym, right? You're a coach, an instructor, has an impact on the level of black belt that you will be. Plain and simple, right? You have a ton of responsibility and a ton of of impact yourself. But I mean, they could give you the black belt before you feel like you're ready. But we'll just say that that's not. We'll say right now, before we really get into learning and all this stuff, we'll say that that's equal. Everybody's equal. So what can you, as a practitioner, what can you see? Because it's really easy. Blue belt, I believe, is like the place. Like blue belt blues are for real. I think we might have talked about that before. It's a real thing. Blue belt, I feel like, is the deepest belt. I feel like that's kind of, for me, I was a blue belt for 3.5 years, and like all the other belts, I was under a year. I got my black belt in a little over 5 years. 3.5 of them I spent as a blue belt. So it was the deepest belt for me. And I kind of want to say that that's probably where a majority of the learning happens, as far as sort of what the heck am I doing, and then how do I do it, and when do I do it. But when you look at yourself, if you're looking at yourself day by day and with the same group, it's hard to see yourself change. It's like you see yourself in the mirror every day, but someone else that hasn't, and they see you every month, it might be like, dude, have you been working out? You probably get that if you are training religiously. All of a sudden you see someone you haven't seen for a month. They're like, oh man, are you working out? And you're like, yeah, but you may not see that, but they do. And you're like, oh, I didn't even notice. Small things, I think, that you can that are sort of cliche, right? That I don't like to compare. I don't preach comparing yourself to anyone else, because if they're training more than you may never catch them. If they started before you and are training equal and they're athlete, you may never catch them. But little victories of getting, like, say, we'll just use mount for you're mounted, right? You're doing positional training and you're mounted. Getting out of the mount technically correct with your elbow position, everything, and potentially like, hey, I've gotten out of the mount, but this guy got my back many, many times. Now I got out of the mount. Hey, he didn't get my back after my mount escape. I was able to get to the half guard and sort of like, oh, cool. Those little victories, you sort of pat yourself on the back about, but when you reflect on your training, that's kind of where the real change, and I believe, happens, is when you reflect and you can start solving your problems that you had during the round, and you can start saying, oh yeah, that's what happened, man. That's what happened. That thing I did is my elbow was not on the far hip. It got over here. He got my back. I got to try this next round, and start to sort of solve problems on your own. Boy, you're on the right path. You're on the right track then. And that isn't easy. That comes with a lot of reflection. It comes with a lot of questions for your instructor. If you have video access, it comes with watching yourself train. It comes with all kinds of tools like this to be able to realize and problem solve on your own. Then you're really like, hey, now you're on the right track. You're on the right track, where you don't have to ask somebody over and over and over. You ask them, they give you feedback, then you go, you try it, and then you're like, oh, hey, that was what my instructor was saying or my coach was saying. And you realize what you're doing wrong. That's a big step. That's a big step in the right direction. And awareness, that's sort of like an awareness of all of the different technical aspects, positional aspects, kind of where you are in that specific environment. When you hit that awareness, sometimes it feels like you got worse, but that's when you're getting better. And that's when you're really going to go, okay, now you have the key to growth now, is that awareness.
I mean, there's several things you said there I'd like to kind of circle back and zoom in on.
Yeah, sure.
Something I found myself struggling a bit over the years, and also I've heard this from other advanced ranks talk about this as well, is that sometimes when we think about what a legitimate black belt is, we think of this person that has like 1,000 options for whatever position they're in. We think of someone who's fully capable of reaching into the proverbial toolbox and accessing any technique that exists like at will. And the problem with thinking of that, in my opinion, is if you have that in your head of what's standard for a black belt, jiu-jitsu is such a vast catalog of techniques and positions. There's only so much that I think one person can perfect over a lifetime. But if we have this perception in our head that a black belt is defined by being this all-knowing master of jiu-jitsu, it can cause us to kind of mentally discredit the areas of our game that we are really good at, and instead get fixated on things that we aren't that great at. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very good. I asked my friend Travis Stevens one time, we were talking about black belts, and he's like, boy, judo, we define a black belt a little bit different than jiu-jitsu. I was like, what do you define as black belt? He's like, somebody who can play. I'm like, they can play the art. I'm like, oh, well, that's actually kind of nice. It's very non-specific. But it's actually kind of a nice little guideline, right? Is someone who can play in all positions. I would say someone who isn't going to get lost in any position. They may have, now, technically speaking, they may have an answer for most of the situations, but depending on the individual, they may not be able to really use that answer, because human beings are the variable in jiu-jitsu. We are the variable in jiu-jitsu. So you and I might perform a technique the exact same, but if you're more athletic, your decision-making process is quicker. You have that move more finite than I do. It's just more rehearsed. You might be able to do that move to someone that I can't do that move to, even though my knowledge is there. Hey, I know what I'm doing, and I know how to play in this environment. I may not be able to do it on everybody, but I'm not lost. I can play there. I can play in half guard. I can play. I know what berimbolos are. I don't have to do them, but I know what it is. I got my back taken. I'm ready to defend and play out of that position. And so you can train. And I love, my friend Jamie Crowder told me this one time. He said, training should be a conversation and not an argument. And I love that saying. And so two black belts should be intelligent conversation on the mats. It doesn't have to be masterpieces of conversation. It doesn't need to be like this analytical conversation, but it should look like two guys having a great conversation in all positions without trying to crush each other, with getting that out of the way. Not competing, but playing in general. Now we're talking about the enthusiasts. We're not talking about competitors. We're not talking about elite athletes. We're talking about just in general, for the general jiu-jitsu community. That should be a goal of yours, and to not worry about any of the minutia in between. Just play, learn how to play in all positions. Feel like I don't really get stumped in many positions, although maybe I can't do it, but you're not stumped. And I think that's kind of a nice little, easy. It's easy, right? It's easy. It's not so technical. It's pretty broad in nature, but it's somewhat easy.
That's great. I really like that too. That's a really good, cool thing that Travis Stevens said. Let me ask you this. I mean, there obviously are, of course, people in jiu-jitsu who are like walking encyclopedias of technical knowledge, but do you think that it's safe to say that most black belts, while technically competent and able to play in these positions, as you're saying, generally speaking, have a very specialized game that just revolves around a few positions?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. This is my bananas brain, right? My bonkers brain is to know every single little detail all the time. Like, that's what I love to do. I mean, I'm like, let's go. Let's understand everything, and then let's make it better. That's not for everybody, but that's what I do. That's what I like. But I feel like probably the normal person, because I'm not normal, I'm a maniac, but the normal person yeah, they just do what they do with what they've learned, what their body's like, what feels good for them, what's sort of somewhat easy for them. Now, can they change that? Oh, God, yes. Can you be an encyclopedia? Oh, yes. Does it take an immense amount of time? Yes. Yes, it does. But you can do that. You can certainly be that person. Yeah, you just have to find the right people to get you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shawn, as a fellow maniac, what helps you collect this data and organize it in a way that you don't just forget it or lose it over time? Like, how do you sharpen multiple areas constantly?
This is a good question. So training, right? Drilling and training, which brings us, so this crazy topic is drilling these days. Oh my God. Drilling and training do, and play. So and responsibility. First of all, I take notes all the time. Still, I took notes when I learned. It really is up to you. That's the coolest thing in jiu-jitsu is it's all up to you, man. It is 100% up to you. How much time do you want to invest on a skill set that you're going to build? And then you have to define why I'm going to invest this time or what I'm going to do. And then you got to be happy with obviously you can't get out of balance. I was out of balance. I mean, there was nothing in my life I was doing all of it. There was no balance in my life. And but that's how I wanted it. I did combat sports like around the clock. I worked to make money and went to school to learn how to do physical education, exercise science. But it was all for that reason. And I didn't even know I was going to make money with it at that time. There was no schools. I was going to do physical. I was going to be a physical therapist once I was done with my career of jiu-jitsu. But you have to take responsibility. So what you learn, you need to write it down. You need to reflect on your training. You need the right coach. That's a really big deal. The right leader to create that environment that has all the tools you need to excel. And then you need self-study also. You got to study competitions. You got to study. I like instructionals from the right people. Whoops, Fanatics. I love instructionals. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. From the right people, I like instructionals. I think you can kind of learn a lot of different things from a lot of people because, again, people are the variables, and there are a lot of different body types and all so forth and so on. So instructionals are good to get ideas, but I always feel like you got to be cautious on who you're learning from by any coach. So it's got to make sense. It's got to be technical, and it's got to be an approach that will, if you're a maniac like us, that will get you to the world-class level and allow you to submit or play at the world-class level. You don't have to compete. But like, if you want to be world-class, you could absolutely be world-class and not compete. And also like give some real, you'd be a great training partner for the world-class competitors. You actually may submit them at will. But if you are that person that is that analytical, that is that technical, that just has zero holes, that understands jiu-jitsu like almost no one else. But you have to take responsibility. It takes a lot of self-study, a lot of writing notes, reflection on your training, watching competitions, endless hours of study. And that's not just jiu-jitsu, wrestling. I study wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu. And then, of course, when I talk about MMA, watch MMA and boxing and kickboxing and Sanshao. It's like, dude, it's endless. Just to get one little thing. You can just get one little thing that's like, yeah, but that's because I'm a weirdo. And so that's not for everybody, but you can be that way, but you have a lot of responsibility on your end. Remember, if you're training, even if you're training 3 times a day, let's say you're training 6 hours a day. Well, how many hours are there in a day? Well, there's 24. If your coach sees you for 6, well, then you have a bunch of hours that you can go that up, right? You can go mess that up. If they see you 6 hours and you have 18 hours to screw it up, then you have more time than they have, so you can screw that up. So you have all that responsibility. That's, if we were doing 6 hours of training, you have 3 times the amount of hours that they have to make an impact in your game. So you can mess that up. Don't mess that up. So take responsibility, lots of responsibility, studying, blah, 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 yeah. Getting rest, being a thinker and making sure that you understand things. And if you don't, you ask questions.
Shawn, what do the best leaders and coaches do? What parameters do they follow that someone who is not as good might miss out on?
So a leader is different than a coach, right? I think you obviously, it's good if you get both. A leader inspires people to be better, wants them to aspire to be better, gives them the tools to get better. And if they don't have the tools, they will give them access to the tools to get better. They're open-minded and they lead from the front. They walk the walk, they talk the talk. They do their study, they do their homework, they do what they need to do. They're out in the field every day, day in, day out, making sure that they're bringing back what's best for that particular group. They don't stop studying. They don't become a dinosaur in the sport. They continue to try to learn and lead. That's a leader. Now, that doesn't mean that all coaches are leaders, right? Doesn't mean that. A coach should be a leader. I think the best coaches are arguably leaders. But a coach is someone who gives that same sort of atmosphere in the room. It doesn't mean that they go outside of the room. That's why there's a great coach is a leader, because they go outside of the training hall. They impact you outside of the training hall. A coach, for all intents and purposes, could be training hall, done. That you could call that a coach. I mean, there's like 7th grade basketball coaches, right? That's a coach. They're calling them a coach. Do they aspire a kid to be better? Maybe not. Maybe they may not have played basketball before, but they volunteered to do basketball coaching at their little local middle school. That, there's a difference. There's a lot of differences between coaches, leaders. The level of coaching is, way different. So again, that goes back to there's no governing body in jiu-jitsu. So there's no one that says this is a good coach and that's a bad coach. Or a coach. We won't call anybody a bad coach if they're trying. This is like maybe an uneducated coach. They're just doing their best, but they didn't have the people around them to make them a great coach. Coaches do the same thing. They give an atmosphere where it's safe learning, where they promote creativeness, where they promote the athletes to really develop their skill sets. They don't hold them like, hey, you have to do it this way. You can do it anyway. But I tell my athletes, there are many ways to do things. This is what I would advocate, but you can do whatever you want. It's here's where I believe is the most efficient method. But if you have a method that works better for you, go for it. That's okay with me. If you're a competitor, what I want to see is I want to see you successful in a competitive environment. That's what I want to see. And if that's something that you're doing is working in a competitive environment, then I'm going to say, right, rock on, let's go. I think one of the best examples of this in modern day is Cael Sanderson. He is a exceptional coach. I talked to Jason Nolf about him, and just like you see what he's doing there, and their athletes all look different, right? They're not like all doing the same thing. They're creative. They're doing different things. And he obviously does a very good job of recruiting. That's one thing. When you have a college that's won that many times, you usually get the best guys. But I think what he did early on is set a precedence that these guys can really go out there and create, and winning just doesn't matter at all. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Winning doesn't even matter to them. Which then it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When winning isn't important and you're focused on the individual, all of a sudden winning becomes everything. It's like, it just happens, right? The focus becomes correct. But yeah, that's what I think. I think both parameters, one should be that great coaches should be great leaders, but they're not always. And maybe they don't want that responsibility, because that is a big responsibility. Being a leader is a huge responsibility. And it makes a leader as well is going to force is a rough word, but if we're talking about athletes, they're going to hold athletes accountable for what they say they want to do. So, and that's very, very, very important. An athlete can talk all he wants. He can be, I want to be a world champion. I want to do this. I want to do that. But if there's no accountability, then they're probably not going to be that, unless they're just an anomaly, right? There are anomalies. Matt Serra is an anomaly. That dude knew he was going to be a UFC champion for like from the day I met him, and he was an anomaly. It's for me, he was an anomaly. He knew it, and he went there and did it. But that was like almost all because that was burning in himself to go do it. So, you know, that's not everyone. A great leader just has to say, hey, you want to be a world champion? How many tournaments are you doing this year? Oh, you're doing one? No, sorry, you're not going to be a world champion. No, you're going to do like 12. You're going to do 5. You're going to do 6. Whatever, because it's different for everybody. Everybody competing. You know, we're diving in on competitors all of a sudden, but it's different for everybody. A leader can hold students accountable if they say, hey, I really want a black belt. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Be a great coach. Be a great leader. If they don't show up, like, hey, man, what are you doing? Didn't you want to be a black belt someday? Yeah. Well, you're not going to be a black belt like missing class, missing practices. Let's go. Come on. Take responsibility. Write notes. Let me see your journal today. Let me see it. Oh, wait, you didn't take notes for a month straight? Well, you know, come on, let's go. You hold some accountability, although the pressure, not pressure, but the level of accountability can vastly change when it's now I don't like hobbyist. I don't like the word hobbyist, by the way. So I call them enthusiasts. You have an enthusiast versus a competitor. The level of accountability is obviously going to be very, very different from an enthusiast to a competitor. Getting a black belt is totally different than being the most decorated world champion in the history of jiu-jitsu. That's two different levels of mind and human. So level of accountability, I think, needs to represent what the actual goal is, so that there's not unnecessary pressure or unnecessary direction put on someone. Yeah. That makes sense?
It does. Absolutely. Yeah. Very well said. Yeah, to tie that together with something you were saying earlier, we're talking about obviously coaches and leadership, and also the ability to have your own self-discipline and your own guidance. I'm glad that we talked about these two things, because something that happens once you become an advanced rank in jiu-jitsu is you find that your instructors are not always holding your hand so much anymore. Like in the beginning at most academies, there's a sense of being mentored and guided by instructors in the room. They hover over the beginners classes, make sure they're correcting things often. But there comes a point in the journey where you kind of take your development into your own hands, like you described earlier. And, you know, of course, you still have your instructor there to bounce things off of, and good instructors will continue to correct and assist you in your development. But I feel like once you have your foundation in place, the way you build your house is kind of up to you, you know, and you have to figure out which positions and techniques are most effective for your body type and your style of play. So it's something you really do have to do on your own. So with that said, what do you think are some of the best practices for students to organize and guide and also analyze their own performance in the art effectively, especially people that like don't compete, who don't necessarily have footage of themselves training? What are some good practices to self-reflect on what needs to be improved?
Self-reflection. So how's your training going? Again, are you getting lost? If you can get video footage, that's always good, because you can see yourself progressing. Also, when you are training with lesser experienced people, is it becoming easier and easier? Are you becoming Neo in the Matrix now, because you can like see everything coming a lot easier? You're having a lot easier time repeating what you're doing. I feel like very strongly about who you train in the room with. Obviously, it's much easier to see when you're training with those that are a little bit lesser experienced but still skillful. And then you can really start to see like how you're progressing. How am I progressing? It's funny when we all start jiu-jitsu and 6 months, 8 months in, and we just think we're suck, right? We just like, I suck at this. Everybody's kicking the shit out of me. But then a new person walks in, and then you beat them up, quote unquote. And you're like, whoa, it's like the mirror thing again. You know what I mean? You look in the mirror every day, you get somebody new in, and you're like, oh, wow, that I really did get good. This is self-reflection all the time. It's all the time. And I'm a big fan of guidance. I mean, I do feel like coaches need to keep giving their people feedback and constantly working on refining technique. Like we sort of started to say refining, how do you refine technique earlier? And we get into that. And, but when I was coming up, I guess like we had it kind of different, you know, like, we got to test ourselves on a lot of like world champions that would come from Brazil, either friends of Renzo's or other people that would come in that were fighting and just wanted to come in and train. And we could see ourselves like, oh, wow, we're getting a lot better in this room. Like just a lot better. So that was a little bit, I guess, comparing to others that were not from our school was always sort of indicative of like, wow, I'm getting a lot better here. But again, reflecting, you guys got to understand where your journey is, how easy it is for you or how hard it is for you, solve problems, always have a wherewithal of what you're doing, and then find the best means to do that. And ask questions to your instructors and coaches. They should know how, you know, like, hey, give you some guidance, technically as well. It's not only just, you know, okay, do that, train more positional work. Okay, great. Train, you know, do more situational training. Okay, great. They should also be able to watch you roll and be like, okay, that elbow isn't where it's best served. We need to move our elbow out, and we need to, let's sharpen that up through some drilling and repetition, either passive or active, to sharpen that up. Okay, great. And then you're going to be on your merry way. So
something I think is a difficult aspect of kind of analyzing and guiding your own way sometimes is the struggle of sliding skill sets, which is basically like you identify an area of your game that needs improvement and you focus on it for a long time to make it better, and then you feel like the other areas have gotten rustier as a result, right?
Yeah.
I think the most common example of this is probably like when we commit to either focusing on passing guard or playing the guard offensively. And I remember really distinctly as a purple belt under Paul Creighton, my passing was really lacking, and so I committed like an entire year to only starting from my knees, only playing from the feet, never pulling guard, just focusing on passing. And my passing, of course, improved, but then I noticed aspects of my guard weren't as sharp as they were before. So it's like, damn it. Like, now I have to go back over here. What do you think is the best way to manage that? Like as far as
I think, sorry to cut you off, right? I think it's, let's, you know, to really be honest, I don't think there's really any way around that. If you want to be a great passer, you've got to spend some time passing. And it also is relative to how much time do you have to train, right? So how much time do you have to train? If you have unlimited amount of time, then that's minimal. There's a minimal loss in, and I wouldn't call it skills. So you don't lose. Oh, it would take you a very long time to lose your skill. I don't believe we lose skill. What we lose, now, that being said, you might lose a little sharpness, but the muscle memory that you build, it takes a very, very long time, if ever, to lose that. It's in your nervous system. It's no longer your mind that has to think about that. It's in your nervous system. For example, walking, right? Do you forget how to walk? No, you don't. You learn that as a child, and then you don't forget it unless something happens to you. And if you were bedridden for a month, when you got up to walk again, it would feel difficult. Your muscles wouldn't be ready. You might feel clumsy until you started to get the right build back into your muscles to support what your nervous system needs to perform the way that you perform then. This is what I think happens when we stop doing the guard. So say, for instance, you're like passing. Then you go like, okay, I need to play guard for a while. I haven't played for a little while. You may notice that there's a slight fatiguing in the muscles that it takes to play guard. If your muscles are fatigued, then it doesn't matter what you want to do. You probably won't be able to do it. So you lose a little bit you may fatigue a little bit more. You also, timing is a real thing too. So the actual skill set, let's take, I don't know what move you want to take. Let's take a closed guard arm lock, right? You haven't played guard for a long time, you get closed guard. The actual skill sets of doing the closed guard arm lock, if you just repped it out when you know it, you're solid. it's not going to feel that much off if you didn't do it for 2 years. You're like, yeah, that felt a little rusty. Let me sharpen that up. Okay, great. 20 reps in, it's sharp. I feel as good as I did there. But the timing might not be there. You might be a little rusty on the timing that needs to be shaken off, developed, redeveloped. You train it. But then when you train, that comes back very, very quickly. And so then if you were focused on passing and then you go, you sort of neglect your guard, when you come back to your guard, you can be just as good or better than you were in a pretty short time, a shorter time than when you were first learning. So then if you stack these things and you start working on your passing and your guard goes, and then but your passing is here, it's not going to fall all the way down to where it was. It might fall down to here. Then you get your guard back up and you get your guard better. Meanwhile, your passing is elevated. Maybe it's just a little lower. So then you go, boop, 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 boop. And it's kind of like putting clay on a sculpture. It's like putting all this clay in, adding new parts to it. And all of a sudden, over time, you have a masterpiece. And I don't think there's any real way around it except for increased amount of time.
But it's very reassuring for people that feel like they might have to take time off from training, or people that feel like they're losing previously built skills, to know that you're not actually losing. It just feels that way.
No.
Yeah,
not at all. Speaking of coaches, I heard somebody say something that I just was like, no, oh my gosh, high level coach saying something really stupid. But said something about there's no transference of skills. Like you can, what you learn as a child doesn't transfer as an adult, or doesn't have anything to do with winning as an adult. That's the most moronic statement I've ever heard in my life. Yes, it does 100%, because so you don't need to worry about your skills diminishing. You build skills over time, and you do that with specifics, and you do that with drilling, you do that with training, you do that there's so many broad ways to develop skills that you should encompass. You should use them all. It's just how much time do you is the best method. And to be really honest, at what state of your training is best as a child versus an adult. It's two different. And boys versus girls. Boys as youth learn differently than girls as youth. Two different ways. You could have two different classes for young boys and young girls, and they would be different. You could tell a young girl, I want you to put your elbow here, put your hand over here, put your elbow here, and do an elbow escape. And you showed them once, then you described it. They'd be pretty spot on. They'd be like, okay, move your elbow over a little bit. Okay, pretty spot on. Boys, you're like, okay, here's how you do an elbow escape. This is it. You don't tell them anything. And they're going to be like, okay. And they're going to learn through doing it as children. Then when everything starts to mature, we start learning, we can start to process information. Then the more technical side can start to come into play. Then you can absolutely fill somebody up with exceptionally detailed techniques, and it will make a massive difference. Anyway, about the transference of skills. If you lost skills, as I said earlier, we learned to walk as a child. If you didn't walk for a month, I promise you, if your muscles were the same, you will not stand up and fall on your face. You will not forget how to walk. It is in there. It is ingrained. And what you learned as a child, it will carry through for the rest of your life, unless there's a problem, right? So they say there's been multiple studies. And so there's even been some studies with Alzheimer's, right? So they don't even remember their name. They don't remember you. Like if it's the craziest thing, it's, I don't remember my son. I can't remember his name. But if there were musicians per se, and you gave them a guitar and they were guitarists, all of a sudden they can start playing the guitar. That's a skill, right? It's a learned skill. Your muscles and your nervous system retain that. Now, can you build on it? Yeah, man, absolutely. So to say that the transference of skills it's moronic actually. And, but they do, but you can build on those things. So when an athlete comes and lands on my lap, I'm like, great. This guy or gal has athleticism. Great. That's a great building block to now take and propel. Right? Great. They have athleticism. They probably developed that as a child through playing multiple different sports and learned hand-eye coordination, speed, strength, endurance, all this stuff that they could gather from multiple sports, boy, oh boy, that is a really going to make a great human being in jiu-jitsu. You layer the right technique on that person and whoo, and the right understanding and contextual learning, whoo, man, that's a potential world champion if they like it enough.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier about how jiu-jitsu really is an art where you can it kind of becomes specialized to your body type, and your personality sometimes influences the way you play jiu-jitsu. What do you feel are crucial components that should exist in any student's game, regardless of the particular style and positions they play?
Yeah, fundamentals. Your personality can dictate a lot of different things. And also, I mean, it's also like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be successful? Do you want to, what are your goals? Because that really leads the way. Everybody has different goals, and what they want to do is up to them. But you cannot get away from fundamentals. I mean, everybody should have a fundamentally solid base in jiu-jitsu, because that's what gives you the fun of playing, really, right? It makes it fun when you aren't stuck on the bottom of the mount and you have no idea how to get out. That's not fun. And I mean, maybe it is for some people, but it's not fun for if you're mounted and you like that, like, you just beat out, well, that's different. Fundamental skills are super important. And because it makes it more fun when you know how to get out, and you can get out and play. And even if you can't get out because the person is just better than you or bigger than you, and you're trying the skills the best that you can, it's the most efficient way to do it, and you still can't get out, but it still gives your mind somewhere to go besides panic. So if I know what I'm supposed to do and when I'm supposed to do it, and I can focus on what I'm doing, it helps me stay away from panic. Because if the unknown makes you panic, right? They're like, I don't know how to get out of here. Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I'm just getting crushed. I don't know how to get out. I don't know. And then it's defeating. But if you're working on getting out, you're just using the amount you're working on that, and you're doing the right things, and you're focused on the technique, and you're trying to get out, you're going through these steps, and you're going through these steps, and you're going through these steps. At least it gives your mind a place to go. That's a safe space. Like, hey man, I'm working all these techniques, and maybe I can't get out, or maybe I've tried 3 or 4 and I just don't know how to get out of here. And I can't, but I'm trying. It just keeps your mind going on the obstacle at hand.
Let me ask you this. There's a thing I'm sure you're familiar with, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where basically the less that someone knows about something, the more confident they feel, and the more they know, the more they feel that they don't know anything, right? As an experienced instructor, how often do you notice advanced students getting in their own way mentally sometimes due to self-doubt?
That can happen all the time. Yeah. Especially if you this is something that I was guilty of for a long time. I assumed that everybody knew what I knew. And so then when you do that, if you're focused on like, well, if I do that, what if they do that? Instead of just focusing on yourself and like, I'm gonna do this. This is where I'm going with my mind. This is what I'm doing. Focus on myself, focus on things I can control, can't control the other person. I'm only going this way. Then that'll help, right? But that's a for real thing, and the only way to get around that is to do it over and over and over and over. If it's competing that it's the problem, then you need to compete all the time while you're working on focusing on what you can control. Winning is not even important whatsoever, and understanding that you are only in control of yourself. But that thing, what you described, it's just an awareness. That's where the blue belt blues sets in, right? You now have, if jiu-jitsu is a roadmap, and when you first learn, it's true. I was just talking about somebody in the academy with like this. It's like, sometimes you have a guy that's just athletic come in, and he'll give you more problems in the beginning than he will when he's like a blue belt, because now he's trying to be technical. He's trying to play. It's not giving you that same weirdo looks that you had, was just developing on, because sometimes people have great instincts. And even if they didn't know anything, they might have really great instincts, be hard to control, and it's like, man, this person was harder a year ago. But now I will tell you, if they have the right coach at the end of the road in 12 years or 10 years or 8 years, they're going to crush the person that came in the door. But it's an awareness. And so if jiu-jitsu is a roadmap and you put the highways there and you learn the highways, you might be just fine to play. but then it can get really intimidating when you put all the scenery in there. You put like, now you go into a 3D map, there's trees, houses, back roads. It's like, geez, it's just overwhelming. And so then that's where I think, that sort of paralysis can come into play with self-doubt, because you're not sure which road to take now, which is going to be the fastest. I don't know. I have 20 options. Which one would be the fastest? Like, so then that's just defining what you want, what you like. You can know 20 options, but you're probably not going to use all 20 of those. So just get what you like to do. You can know all 20, but do what you want to do and do what you like to do, feels good for you. And that'll help that. Then you'll have one or two things in those 20 that sit well with you, that you get great at. The other ones are going to just be for knowledge sake. And if those situations arise, you're ready.
Something I've heard come up several times when I talk to different black belts is just the idea of feeling like imposter syndrome. Like especially happens with people that come from really top tier teams. Like, and this is why I think this is a great question for you, because you came up under Renzo with the original squad. You're part of the original Renzo squad. Did you feel any twinge of imposter syndrome when you got your black belt? And if so, how'd you deal with it?
No, I didn't know. I wasn't ready for my black belt, really. Because I was training all the time. I wanted to go compete. I still did anyway. Still went, like, I got my black belt in April, and I did the Worlds in 2002 in July. I think it was July. So it's hard to say that, because we had all these world-class people coming in. And I mean, what we did to the world-class people coming in, it was honestly proof that, man, we're on that level of that, because we had a great teacher, and also, the few of us that were in there that were putting that much time in, investing that much time into training. And so no, I didn't have that, because I could see what was happening to people, either by myself or by John or Matt or Rodrigo or Ricardo. Like, just like, yeah, okay, cool. World's best are not the world's best here. No, I didn't really have that. And I know what that is, imposter syndrome. And I think that's just a doubt. You're always going to keep learning, man. Myself, knowledge wise now would kick the shit out of him when I got my black belt. I mean, it's like, that was just like the beginning, you know what I mean? The black belt was the start of real learning. That's when I could start really understanding. And I've grown 100 times since that person. So, when you get your black belt, if you're a new black belt, the plant grows to the size of the pot or the container, right? So you went from this, now you got this big container, you're going to grow like crazy. As long as you, again, take the responsibility and accountability to promote that growth, and you have the right people around you to instill that growth. You're going to grow like crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's common. I don't think anybody's actually, because black belt's that thing, right? You're like, man, I'm never going to be there. And when it happens, you're like, oh my gosh, now what? Well, now that's the beginning. Let's go. Now you're really going to learn. So yeah, I get it.
It's kind of like what Travis was saying earlier. You've arrived to where you can actually play now.
Man.
That's cool.
You arrived at the beginning. At the beginning. Congratulations. Like, now you're ready to really go.
That's awesome, man. That is really cool. Well, Shawn, I'll tell you what, man, we've reached the halfway point of the show. This is where I always play a game with my guest. You're a multiple time veteran of this game. So this is the Pummel game. The Pummel is a series of random questions. Some of them are about jiu-jitsu. Some of these have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But if you're down to play the Pummel for the fifth time or the fourth or third time, Shawn, so you've been on the show. You were on the show years before I even did the Pummel. But I'd love to play with you again if you want to play another time.
That's what every day we're pummeling, right?
Every day we're pummeling. Let's do it. All right, man. Right. Here, question one. I've added a couple new questions to the Pummel. So these are a few of these you haven't done before.
Great, because I don't remember the last questions, right?
Okay, good. What's the largest animal you think you could defeat in hand-to-hand combat?
Oh, Jesus. Probably like, if I'm lucky, maybe a house cat. I don't know. What's the largest, most docile animal? Like a manatee? I don't know. You can't defeat any large animals. We're humans. We get the shit kicked out of us. We get annihilated by large animals. I mean, geez. Think about a honey badger. Oh my God.
I love the idea of punching a manatee, like starting a fight with a manatee. Like just,
there we go.
You know, what could have, yeah.
Just like, not punch you back. Like, look at you. Yeah.
End up on the evening news. Local jiu-jitsu instructor picks fight with docile animal. Okay, if you found a genie lamp and you could have 3 wishes, same normal genie rules apply. So no killing people, no wishing for more wishes. What would be your 3 wishes?
3 wishes. Oh my God. Well, I mean, I would wish that my son and daughter could have all the dreams that they ever want to fulfill. That would be the first one. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Second one, geez. I mean, that's huge, right? That's a big wish. Probably wish for, now this is always a debate, you know, I wish for a superpower, but like, I'd probably wish for the superpower to stop time.
Okay.
Is that
sure.
legal?
Sure.
And I wish for
totally.
The control of time. Yeah. I think that would probably be pretty important. And then I would, cause then that'd be great, man. Like, stop time. I guess, can I add a second tier to that or no?
Yeah. Sure. Of course.
And I would be able to stop the time of whoever I touched.
Ooh, nice.
So I could stop time they would be able to stop time with them. That'd be important. You guys would all be screwed then. Like, all of a sudden, where did he get these people? Like, geez, it was a day ago. These guys were like white belts, and now all of a sudden, his son is like kicking our butt. Like, he's 6.5, and he's beating up Hodger.
That's amazing.
Third wish. Let's see. Third wish, I guess. You know, I'll just make this sort of humane. I wish we could all just get along in jiu-jitsu.
That's a good one. And jiu-jitsu drama and the politics. I love it.
Yeah. Everybody's a multimillionaire if that's what they want. Perfect.
That's excellent. I really like that. Yeah, I'm glad you elaborated on this freezing time thing, because that can go a lot of directions. Like you have to wonder if people are talking about like literally everything is frozen. You can just take a nap and then come back and it's 3 o'clock again. Or is it like life continues on, but time is not affecting and like you're not aging or anything like that. So I'm glad.
I would just, I mean, I think if you could control time, maybe you'd have that like parameter in there. I don't know.
Yeah. No, but I'm glad that it's cool that you elaborated specifically what you mean. What do you think is the worst job you ever had?
Oh, I can tell you right away. Worst job. I was an inventory specialist when I went to New York. I first moved to New York. I did this inventory job. Oh my God, it was horrible. I had to type on this little typewriter, count all this inventory. I almost died on the way there. I think back then, all these people complain about minimum wage now. I think like I was like $7 an hour, and I was like, oh my God, I have to work a bazillion hours to afford $250 a month. What the heck, man? Yeah, horrible, absolutely horrible job. Horrible. It's the only job. Now I gave it my all. It's the only job I ever walked out on. That's the only job. I usually finished my jobs or gave notice. That one was the only job I literally took the belt off, walked out of the store.
Yeah. I remember that one from the last time, actually, because I told you that I used to work at Home Depot a long time ago.
That's right. And I was counting the screws.
And I used to feel for the guys. Yeah, count screws. Yeah.
Man.
Like that guy has to scan every screw code. Like that's that poor painful. Dude.
Like 1347. No, I'm done.
Yeah. It's like, forget it. What do you think is a secret talent that you have that people might not know about?
I don't know if I have any secret talents, buddy. I try to, I mean, I don't know. How many people have heard my dad jokes?
Oh, dude, you gotta fire off a couple dad jokes. Let's go.
Well,
let me hear one.
Well, you put me on the spot now, man. Like I had a whole bunch of them earlier today. I mean, we were talking about, I don't have a dad joke right now, but I always have them in jiu-jitsu, in the situations of jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So if you're passing, like I commentated WNO last weekend, and Joseph Chin did a marvelous job of like the way headquarters passing should be done is, when you put your head to the floor, a big advocate of this, your hips are square, and he did a great job. And if you really want to know somebody that's a master of jiu-jitsu, I think Huey Lewis had it right long, long ago. I think he was like a jiu-jitsu master because it was hip to be square, man. And yeah, that's bad, right?
That's great. That's really good.
But it's in the moment.
That's good.
It's in the moment.
It's good. It's good.
Ryan, here, when you're doing a single leg, you grab the high shin where the knee meets the shin, right? That's very important. Now, it actually is. It's super important that that's where you dominate when you're in a single leg. Because if you grab the low shin, it's just going to be too slippery.
Dude, you and my brother need to get together and start like a bowling team or something. So my brother, the same thing. Oh, dude, he is the punniest dude. Not the funniest, but he's the punniest. Chris is the punniest dude.
Yeah, we just definitely lost a lot of listeners right now. Buddy. Sorry, guys.
That's awesome. I love it, man. What's something you wish you were better at?
Always being a dad. I'm always trying to get better at being a dad. Try to do my study just like everything else. Talk to people who are better than me. Talk to different people that know kids. That's always something I try to be better at. Yeah, I don't think I think that's I'm passionate about that. Yeah,
that's awesome. What do you think is the worst injury you've ever had?
The worst one was probably my broken jaw. I know a lot of people probably know about that. The most painful one is I tore a muscle off underneath of the bone. That was probably the most painful. But the worst injury was, the broken jaw was probably the most dramatic. Didn't really hurt very bad, but was disgusting. And it took me out of training for a while. Yeah,
I can imagine. Which muscle did you pull off the bone?
It's like one of the little ones underneath the armpit.
Oh,
it was in a tournament. I was really cold in the auditorium, and I hit a single, and when the guy sprawled, I held on to it and just popped the muscle just literally right off the bone. That was the most painful one that I had. Yeah.
Jeez,
it was painful. Awful. Like I fought the rest of the match. It was insanely painful the whole time.
Man.
So that was
I had an old teammate that tore a pec, and he said that it's the same kind of thing. He says it's just excruciating. You can't focus on anything else besides the pain.
I tore my pec major off the bone, had to have it reattached. That's not fun either. But this one was more painful than that.
Was it really?
Actually, oh yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're recovered now, though. That's that's one of those things that hopefully doesn't re-trigger or anything like that.
Yeah.
What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat?
I have a lot of bad foods, buddy. I like to eat. Currently, is Nutella count for bad food?
Oh yeah,
that's like one of my favorites, man. I mean, I love sweets, but that one seems to be like I can't have it around. It's just like I could eat the entire jar in one sitting.
Yeah.
So I love that stuff. Chocolate hazelnut. Whoever made that, whoever found that in nature, is a freaking genius, man.
Yeah. It's dangerous, dude. Dangerous stuff. Who's your favorite MMA fighter of all time?
I think I answered George last time. I'd probably say still him. Although there's so many different great MMA fighters. I think he was probably the first of his real kind. Like, just never stopped learning. He was a consummate professional. Is in his exemplary model of what MMA where professional should be. So still unchanged at this moment. But there certainly are so many great people coming up that are so exciting to watch and that are professionals and well put together. And yeah,
that's awesome. I know you're a big enthusiast of just combat sports in general. So I'm going to throw a random one at you here. Favorite boxer of all time.
This is a little dated, but Evander Holyfield was my favorite boxer. I watched him when I was a kid, and I always. He seemed, obviously I never met him, but he seemed like a world-class individual that was elite, really professional, and just the epitome of a technical boxer. So he was my favorite guy to watch when I was a kid. And so, yeah, I'll stand by that. Evander Holyfield. Yeah.
Great choice. I actually got to meet him a few times because growing up in Atlanta, I used to go to like watch boxing events and stuff, and he had sons that would box, and always a really nice guy. Yeah. But he was someone incredibly exciting to watch back in the heavyweight heydays.
I know.
Boxing. It was
so many good guys.
Yeah. Good choice, man. What do you think is your biggest phobia?
Yeah, sharks. Is there a phobia of sharks?
That's mine too.
I hate those things, man.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, they're so beautiful and crazy, but man, oh man, like Jaws, the movie Jaws, that screwed me up for the rest of my life. Like I can hear it, even I'm in like my ankle deep water, and I'm like, no, okay, where's it coming from? Where's it coming from? If my feet come off the sand, I'm like, screw this. Like
Dude.
I went my camp in Costa Rica, I went swimming, and I was like pretty proud of myself. I'm like, yeah, I got in the ocean. That's why. Anyway, yeah, sharks, I hate them.
Dude, you and I have
it's
the exact same phobia, and it's the exact same source. I swear, TBS played Jaws every Thursday for like years and years, and I used to. It did something to me. Yeah, I cannot mess with sharks, man. I just can't deal with it. We talked about your favorite bad food to eat. What's your most hated food? What's something you cannot eat no matter what?
That's a good question. Capers.
Capers,
my wife loves capers. Oh my lord! Please keep those things away from me. I don't like capers at all. Like, you have those little things? Do you like those little things?
Dude, we're 2 for 2. I hate capers. That would have been my answer too. I swear to God. People put it on salmon a lot, and I like salmon. Yeah. But it's like, dude, you just destroyed the salmon by putting a cape. Yeah. Why did you do that?
Get those little little things. I don't like capers. No way.
Yeah. No way. We talked about the superpower you'd like to have. Who's your favorite superhero?
I've changed throughout the years, right? Hulk was my favorite when I was a kid. I've now recycled back to the Hulk. He's my favorite.
Final question for the Pummel game, Shawn. If a zombie apocalypse breaks out right now in Nashville, Tennessee, what's the first thing you do?
I mean, get my family. That's number one, right? Yeah. Get my family. And and then I don't know if that counts as an answer.
Oh no, totally. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, get my family, and then probably like get to like a Walmart.
Yeah.
I mean, but all the food's gonna be rotten at Walmart. It's like, gosh dang, man.
Good answer. I love it, man. I love it. And Shawn, you're a multiple-time Pummel champion. Congratulations. You win again. You got your double underhooks.
Thank you.
Of course, man. So Shawn, man, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on some technique, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I recently saw you breaking down some elements of body lock passing. It's something I'm playing with a lot now. And I'd love to expand on that with you here. What do you think it is about body lock passing that makes it such an important area for students to focus on?
Well, you know what is funny about body locking? It's tiny. The time that you body lock is very, very, very small. In my opinion, I don't body lock when people are flat. It's when they're seated up, and it's generally because they were winning the butterfly guard battle. They were able to start to sit up, and then you sag, and then you lock in, and you're ready to go. And you spin them, right? There's some finite details with body lock passing that will make it much, much easier if you understand some of those elements, which is, how to I say spin, but it's more like a little turn, and then you flatten them. Instead, you don't flatten them, you actually put them sort of more on their side. And that makes it easier to get around the knee than if you put somebody completely flat on your back. The main thing I can say about body locking, besides all the minutia, right? All the palm, the way your palms or your C-clamp is set, because that changes based on what you have, if you have an arm in or not. You're completely just body lock or arm in body lock. That can change. When you turn them, that's obviously the easiest way to get over the knee. But then to understand that that's where it goes, and understand that when someone goes flat, you unlock your hands and you move on to other things. I call it the shin pin pass. Like I used to call it the Rodrigo pass. He's the one that taught me, but I think it has a couple of other names. I just named it shin pin because I was like, hey man, I'm pinning shin against your, I don't have another name for it. But there's those, and there's a world of passing when someone is flat that are not with their hands locked. So that's important for people to understand, instead of continuing to lock their hands and trying to body lock when it's not the best time to body lock. And that's sort of, this is going to tie into something a little bit different, if you don't mind, Ryan. That kind of goes in along the lines of teaching. And so when I'm or coaches are teaching, and especially if somebody's new, you first talk about what it is and can show them what it is. A body lock passing would be what it is. And then you can, briefly go over how to do that. And if you want, we can talk about the differences between beginners and advanced guys. There's a difference of how information is given, relative to somebody that's new and somebody that's not new. And then there's a why to the how, and then there's a win. So that win, like the whys and the wins, right? That's where you become world class. That's the world classness, right? The whys and the wins, and then obviously how is your second step to becoming world class, right? Which I think there's some disagreements in this in the jiu-jitsu community, but so those things are very important, because if I'm trying to body lock when it's not the best time to body lock, it's not going to work out so well. Now, the way that you work this out, because I think this is why there's so many different ways to do things. The way you work this out is you do it on world-class people. That's the hard part, right? The hard part is to do things at the world-class level, test your moves at world-class level, and work the minutia out at that level. And then you have some real, somewhat concrete when and how and why. And if you don't have access to that, it's not really very concrete in nature. It's sort of, I'm going to body lock on the flat. Well, why would you do that? Because I saw somebody do it. Well, who is it doing it? Oh, it's this guy. Well, how is that guy able to do it on the world-class guy? Some world-class, the best? No. Oh, okay. So it's probably not the best time to do it. So then when can you do it on the world? Okay. So you work these things out, and it's difficult. That's the difficult part of jiu-jitsu. And that's sort of, sometimes when I think about my journey, that's where I'm the most thankful, is that I was able to have world-class instructors and train with world-class people to get some of that stuff ironed out. And I wasn't the biggest guy in the room, that's for sure. So when we're working on techniques and ironing things out, things that worked on the bigger world champions, were, I always felt like, oh, that's good. That's working. This is a good thing. This is a very good way to do this, because it's working on all of these super high level guys that are bigger, younger, stronger than me. Great. And then you can kind of work those things out. So body locking, in my opinion, you don't do it when they're flat. I mean, can you make it work? Yeah. Can you make it work on the world's best, absolute world's best? Probably not. Even if you're really one of the world's best at body locking when they're flat, probably not. It probably, and if you do, remember, body locking is a way to mount. It's not a way to pass the guard. That's also another differentiation between the different ways to body lock. I don't view body lock as a guard pass. I believe it as a way to mount someone. And so when you're passing over the knee, you get a near side underhook. Near side underhook is mounting. You're going to mount someone. And then when you mount them, they'll give you the back. So it goes down these rabbit holes. Man, how many parts can we do here? You want to, we can do like 6 parts of this, baby. I could say something very controversial as well. Maybe not so controversial, but I could tell you right now, the goal, all you listeners out there, the goal, what is the goal of jiu-jitsu? And most people say to submit someone. That's the ultimate goal in jiu-jitsu, to submit somebody. But if you simplified your goal even more, you could just simply say your goal is to mount someone. And then people are like, what are you talking about, mount someone? Well, you mount them, and then you get their back, right? You mount them, and then they give you the back. If you mount right, and what I say, there's no right or wrong. I love this thing too. There's no right or wrong, just consequences. So if you mount and you have one arm up above their shoulder line, you're going to be a bear to get off, right? They have to be very good technically to get you off of the mount, or just to bring their arm back down to where it should be. When you're mounted, your arm should be in a situation where there's a couple of different places, right? You can have 2 hands on the hips, you can frame. Some people lock their hands together, although I only feel this is in one specific mount escape. I don't like locking my hands together. This frame is suitable for almost every escape, unless somebody's up like this, right? But or you can go like kipping escapes where your hands are on your hips. It's fine. All these are fine escapes. But when your arm is up like this, if you don't know where this arm should be, you're going to have a very long day getting your arm like this, right? And all of a sudden, you're also going to be fighting off katakatamis, you're going to be fighting off arm locks. And so access to the back becomes more efficient when you're mounted with an arm up like this. Access to the back when the arms up like this is almost inevitable. Somebody has to bridge to get their arm over. They give you gift wraps to give you the back, blah, blah, blah. So access to the back becomes really much easier if you mount with an arm up like this. So I tell everybody, your goal is to mount with somebody's arm up like this. And if their back is there, great. You take the back. Sure, you can take the back along the way. But sometimes if your goal is the back, you forget that you can just mount people. Like it's hard to get somebody's back when they're flat on their back like this. If they're not exposing their back, and your ultimate goal is to get the back, then it might be hard. If you have the goal of mount, get the arm up like this, then getting the back is so much easier. So first goal, I mount with the arm up like this. Submission is the ultimate goal. Of course, you have to work to get there. And I feel like that's a very good approach for even newbies. I think we've talked about that positional ladder before, with backs on the top of the ladder. Of course, mount is in the second. But if you just say, I'm just going to keep going up that ladder, it gives your mind a good place to go. So side tangent, and then we can get back into the wins of a move. And we were talking about body locking. The win of a move. A body lock is made, in my opinion, it's made for the mount, not just to pass the guard. If you have your hands locked and you pass somebody's guard, if you cannot run under their legs and they don't make mistakes, most likely they're going to re-guard you. It is highly probable. Now, humans are variables. We have to remember that. So if they give up, you mount them when they give up. Okay, you got them. They gave up. But if they are on it, they're ready, you pass their guard, and they are ready, they will generally meet you with a re-guarding because you're very low with your hands locked. It's hard to climb up the body once your hands are locked. Once you have now become perpendicular to their body, it becomes really difficult to get your hands from locked hands back up to the chest level, unless you run under the legs and they're not very experienced there. So, but if you pass and you're body locking, they're on their side and you turn them and then you turn it into a near side underhook, you're prepared to go across their body and one arm is already up like this. So you're not getting met with stiff arms. And so I feel like this is a big, body locking seems to be less of a thing these days, like less so. It's not so like, whoa, everybody's body locking. So, but that's, in my opinion, that's how body lock should be done. It's a very small little window that you're going to use it from. And if they flatten out and you flatten them out, oh, A+ for you. Now use another pass to help you get around the legs so that you can run under the legs, shelf their legs, and then move up into where you can now mount them again.
What are your thoughts on the importance of being able to switch back and forth between like a loose passing style like Toriando's and X passes and a tight passing style like folding passes, or like using a body lock to get things going?
I think that's a great way to approach the passing game, because sometimes you try passing tight and they lock you out. They shut you out. And so, if you're using jiu-jitsu well and you're driving in and they give you momentum out, then that makes sense. You come out, you lose pass, and maybe you pass really easily. So you're in, they push you away, you pass away, the legs loosen, you guide their legs like a bullfight, and then you're right back down again. Same, vice versa. You're loose passing, they're meeting you with legs, and all of a sudden one leg gets in the middle and you're into the half guard. And then you start going from loose to tight as well. I think when you start combining those two games, it becomes very, very difficult for a defensive player to get accustomed to that, because you're throwing everything at them. And so loose, now it's tight. Oh my gosh, push out, now back to loose. Oh, and it becomes cumbersome to deal with.
For people newer to using the body lock, what do you think are some of the biggest indicators and triggers that signal you that it's time to go for the body lock? What are some good things to look for?
Yeah, when someone has two hooks in, they sit you up. Like we call forward shift, right? So there's either frames to forward shift or there's underhooks to forward shift. When they begin to sit up, it's time to sag, spear their sternum with your forehead, pummel with one arm. Usually it's a one-arm body lock that you're going to do on good guys because they're not going to let you pummel both. That's a great time. That's probably the number one time to enter into a body lock, because you're in position to do so. Now, that being said, you can also enter from your feet, seated versus standing. You can enter into body locks from that same position. You can have the person even turned with a body lock. So those are fine times. You can use body locking for sure to get some rest. So say you're in a half guard, you want to lock on somebody's body and you need to hold them. You need to rest a little bit. If you're already around the knee, good. You've already accomplished that part. Then it should be easy once you pass to run under the legs and then move up instead of moving just to the side when you pass. So those are all different areas that body locking is going to come out of the woodwork from, and they're all good times to do it.
What do you think is the top reason that people fail with a body lock? What causes people to lose the position most, in your opinion?
They're doing it at the wrong time. Yeah, they're either flat and getting stiff armed, or they're not turning the person. That's kind of the most common, I believe, is that little tiny turn. That when you drive and you keep your head up, you get over the knee, and then stiff arms are like you're like this on somebody. So the stiff arm here is not the same as a stiff arm from here. And so that's just, it's just, that's what we said. There's so many ways, so many people to learn from. It's, who do you learn from? And that can be, body lock can be done two entirely different ways. And if one's working for you, great. That's cool. That's cool. This is what I preach when I body lock. And, already several of my athletes, they're still young in jiu-jitsu, but man, there's a few of them that are just like, if you watch them, you'd be like, yeah, he's just like did Shawn Williams DVD, that body lock DVD. Like that guy just like must have studied that. Like it looks like he's running a clinic, and he's done it he's a purple belt. He's done it several black belts in our area. And it literally looks like a clinic, but looks like a body locking clinic. And we have a few of them now, and these guys are starting to have this work for them at the higher levels, and I think it's just done somewhat poorly. And if that's why it's not working for you, start to look for other ways. Remember, Ryan, and this is 100% true. You can boil jiu-jitsu down to super finite details. And at the world-class level, you're talking like the world class, you're talking Gordon Ryan, right? Or that level, those make the difference. Those little tiny, minute things all over the place is going to make you different than if you don't know them and you don't understand them. It takes longer to get to that spot, but it is totally worth understanding how your body works, where the leverage points are on people, and there is, in my opinion, a more efficient way to do majority of the techniques in jiu-jitsu. There is definitely a more efficient way. And my job is to seek the most efficient way. And that's hard because we're humans. Variables are hard to deal with. Athleticism, tiredness, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to deal with. I'm always trying to seek to make things better. But there's definitely, at this point, it's getting boiled down to like, you see what the most efficient ways are to do things. And so that's what people need at the world-class level. And to refine your skills that way takes time and energy and an understanding from the teacher. Like your coach needs to know. Like I said, I was lucky. Kenzo was like, this is how you do this. Oh, that's how you do that? Why don't we do it this way? Because this will happen, that'll happen. And it happens if you don't do it that way. So very, very important. Very important.
Speaking of teaching and teaching effectively, there's something you said earlier I wanted to make sure we circle back to. You were talking about transferring information to beginners versus transferring information to people with experience. What are the different ways that you do both those things?
Yeah, that's great. I love this. I love teaching and coaching concepts and talking about it. And because it's a never ending learning process. What can make a person better, faster. And it's not only better, faster, it's better in the long run too, right? You can make a specialist that wins like trials. Like you can make a specialist, if you're really good in an area, you can make a specialist, especially in leg locks. You can make a specialist that can win trials, but then goes against a world-class guy and gets dismantled by a world-class person that they can't leg lock. That has been done, and it can be done. And that's really fast. You can get there really, really fast. But it takes time to develop world-class skills all over the place. It takes a lot of time and a lot of training and a lot of, if you're competing, a lot of competing to really get to that level. And then here's my sort of how I deal with beginners and through advanced. So in the beginning, obviously we talked about, you have to know what it is that you're doing. And when you know what it is, and you kind of have context, you need some context. So you need to kind of know what it is, where it comes from, and where does it go, really. Like that gives somebody an idea of the arena they're playing in. Like guard passing, for instance. Like if I showed you a body lock pass, you would, and you just did that by itself, you really would probably never do that. You would probably not be able to perform that in training if you didn't have real context. How do you get to that environment? And also then when you finish the body lock, where are you going from that environment so that you can problem solve and say, this failed, that failed, this failed. Hey, I need to fix those things up. And if you have context of the sort of what comes before the move and what comes after, or at least the goals that are supposed to happen, that can help you learn. And as a beginner, it's important you learn the big thing first, right? What does the picture look like? Remember Bob Ross? Remember that guy, the painter that could make something, a blank canvas, look like a masterpiece in 30 minutes live on TV, right? Well, I don't know if it was live, but in 30 minutes, right? So what did he do first? Essentially what you're going to do in jiu-jitsu. He painted these big things, these big brown things that were big brown hills. And you knew like, that probably is going to be a mountain at some point, but he painted the big picture. He painted these big things first. So if we're learning a rear naked strangle, you're learning the big movements first. You're learning that, hey, I need my arm under the neck. I need to have the other arm behind the neck. And then I can have a very simple way to apply a strangle. It doesn't have to be the most efficient way. You learn the big picture. The big picture is very important. So then you can actually understand what it is that you're doing. And you can try it. Like especially if you have context, you can kind of try it. Then as you understand the big picture, then you start putting the little things into play. And that's like, if we're talking about him as a painter, like he puts a stick and then he puts all these dabbles around. It's like, I think that's going to be a tree. Then he puts all the highlights. You're like, dude, that looks like somebody did a photograph right there by the end of the time. It's kind of like building skills. Now, I will say, in my opinion, in my experience, everybody's different. So somebody you can give a million details to from the very beginning and they will eat it up. That's me. I'll eat it up. And I think primarily that's because not only did I listen, focus, I went home and wrote it afterwards. Like I'd do it, trained it, and I went home and regurgitated it word for word on one side what I felt like Renzo said. And then it kind of stuck in there, and I'd do the best that I could. Of course, it didn't look exactly how it should, of course. But then when it came around again, I would get more stuff. And came around again, I get more stuff. Or he would tell me in live training, hey, put your arm out, do these things in live training and through coaching that you're like, okay, I sharpened that up. But I believe that big picture is first. So don't be too hard on yourself if you don't remember it all, but definitely go write it down word for word, because that, in my opinion, is the best way to have memory recall. And then you build and you refine your skills as you grow in that area through drilling, training, and getting coached, and through very specific styles of these of in this nature. Because there's so many ways to drill and train. There's a plethora of ways, and so when we start applying these different ways, we can get into now if you'd wish, but I'd love to. Then that will help you turn that technique that you learn at how into a feasible, doable move. So, and that comes through all the practice that you're going to do afterwards. Right.
That's excellent. Shawn, tell me about your favorite teaching methods that you're using right now to help to help with all this.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of now. Children are different than adults, so because that's very important, right? I'm a big believer that children are, it's best, especially boys, it's best to learn through games, like gamification, playing, telling them what the goal is, letting them go, give them parameters, let them change parameters, let them play, tell them what the goal, show them like, okay, you want to get on the mount, start with bullfighting. Here's one way to do it real quick, and then mount. And they'll sort of find a way to mount. They don't need to have too much detail. They can just get there, and they can do that. And but as you start to mature, you go up the ranks of maturity. Now people are able to hold finite technique, and when you carefully give them finite technique, and you're responsible in your coaching, and you don't give too much, but you give enough, and then you give constant feedback, and your athletes, and that includes enthusiasts. I like to call people athletes. You should feel like an athlete if you're doing jiu-jitsu, and your athletes take responsibility, which is the biggest thing ever. They take responsibility to recall what they did, write notes, recall what they did, retain it. Then you're going to get a very technical, high-level human being. So this is how we've always done it. This is what I do. When I teach a technique, I obviously, depending on who I'm teaching with, most people know what things are now. We talk about what it is if they're new. If they're not new, they already know what it is. And then we talk about if they're not new. Sometimes we don't even need to talk about where they're going, because they know that too. Then we hammer home. If they're new, we talk about where they're going. Where's the goal of this position? Then we start hammering the technical side. Now, that being said, with the enthusiasts, I don't sit there and talk for 10 minutes. About 2 to 3 minutes is plenty. So you give them the big picture, you give them 2 to 3 technical details that will help them become efficient. Then you let them go do it. And when we go do it, we do very specific timed-based passive drilling first. It's time, because that way you're not punished if you're with an unknowing white belt, right? If we do 2-minute rounds, and so you've got 2 minutes, and that's your time. And what I always tell people is you do that on one side until it feels somewhat decent, right? It's not going to feel great, but you do it on your right side as many times as you need to feel like, oh, okay, it's kind of smooth. Then you can start doing it on the other side. And then once you have that smooth on the other side, you can start repeating these passive drills equally on both sides. And what the passive drill is going to do is it's going to build muscle memory. Now, this is important, and this is not to be overlooked. Once people are capable of analytical thinking and building muscle memory, boys cannot do it. You'll hear a lot of, I did physical education as well as part of my major. A lot of physical education teachers do the constraint-based learning, which is like, oh, this constraint, this is old. It's like 40 years old. And this is great for kids. This is amazing for kids, because kids can overthink. They don't need to know the details. They're not able to learn. Boys are not able to learn that, and they can't comprehend it. But boys, when they're kids, don't even know why they did something. They'll smack you, and they don't know why, right? They don't know why. And I didn't know this till I was a dad. I went off, and I'm learning from a very, very, very high level psychologist about like the behavior and the development stages of development for boys. Now I got to do that for girls, because now I have a daughter, so it's like I'm vested to go do that for girls. Stage of development, super important, man. Super important for learning. And so boys, young boys like that, that's probably the best way to learn, is that you give them goals. You don't overteach. You give them what it looks like. Go to it, man. And they get it, and they perform it, and they start their goal. But then you got to clean it up. You need to clean it up. Why do you need to clean it up? You have to clean it up because to get to world class, Olympic level athlete, they need finite techniques, and you're capable of that as you age. When we're talking about adults, you may be only capable of handling one or two finite details about a position for quite some time. It may be a week, it may be 2 weeks. So typically, if I'm dealing with the enthusiast, I'm going to teach a finite detail or two. They're going to go back and practice it, and they're going to do passive drilling, actively pass it. I'm going to go around the room and go, great, but that elbow just a little bit wider. Great. I'm a big believer in positive coaching, super positive coaching. Everybody's going to get it. The jiu-jitsu is really not that difficult. You're going to get it. Just takes time. And I don't fill people's heads with too much technique. And I certainly don't hold them accountable anywhere in the beginning of their training. Great. If they got from elbow escape on the mount and they put somebody in half guard, boom. Yes. Good job. That's great. That's the first step, right? Great job. Then we will fix up their technique slowly but surely over time. As they get better and better. So sorry, I kind of dropped short. So we do basically one technique a class. That's it. One, and sometimes one standing, one ground, but that's it. There's no need to do more than that because we also fill it with contextual drilling in the class. So say we're doing mount escape. We would do one or two finite details that are the most important part of whatever we're doing. If it's a frame, if it's a basic elbow escape, where the frame is, where the elbows are, and generally how to get the leg down into the half guard. And then they'll turn. Then that might be it. That's a 2 to 3 minutes of teaching on that first round. 2 minutes of passive drilling. Let's go. Next, we come back and we add to it. If everybody looks good, cool. We add to it. We add another little finite detail or two, and that's it. That's it for the day. Then we put elbow escape, if it's elbow escape, into a contextual environment. So we might say, this person bullfights past your guard, they mount you, you elbow escape because your arms are ready to receive them when they mount you. If your arm was caught up here, you're bridging, you're pulling your arm back down, and you're getting your arms back down here, and you're going. And then we continue to build that way. Build. And the things that we focus on in my gym with enthusiasts and athletes alike, athletes are absolutely more specific in nature if they're competing. We focus on positional rounds. That's a big deal, doing positional rounds. And I feel like I've sort of got a great approach to positional rounds now, just through play and trial and error. And so what we'll do is we'll build positional rounds. It'll be a position, and we never stop in turtle ever. There's no stopping in turtle. There's no stopping in submissions. Both people can submit each other. Both people have to go through turtle because the magic is in the transitions. Transitions are exceptionally hard to teach because they're done through movement. Now you can sharpen things up as where a person should be in that transition, both offensively and defensively, and what they should be doing to basically cut that transition off at the pass. But positional rounds with a live turtle and live submissions, super important. What I try to get away from is to have individuals stop. So like say you're mount escaping, I stop in half guard. No good. That is no good whatsoever. Both parties have an obligation and a responsibility to continue moving until there is a set position done. And someone says, that's enough for me. They stop. And then they stop because they're understanding that if they continued to move, it would get worse. So that's when somebody pins somebody and they hold the pin. Why? Because it's going to get worse if I let go of the pin. They're going to escape. If they're being pinned, why would I stop on a pin? Because if I move anymore, I'm going to get my back taken. And so this is super important. There's a great competition example of this this is way old, 2005. Marcelo Garcia fought Andre Galvão, and these were two of the best gentlemen in the world and still two of the best gentlemen in the entire sport. The first time they fought, Marcelo actually beat him by a lot, right? So, and when Marcelo would get to his half guard, Andre would try to counter, and that laid right into Marcelo's game, right? He just took the back, and it was a pretty good point discrepancy. I'd never talked to Andre about this match. Probably not. He probably were like slap. but on the second one, what happened is he let Marcelo pass. He passed. He let him pass. Then he re-guarded him, swept him, and I was like, "Ooh, well, that's different. That's a massive adjustment in strategy and mindset." He just let somebody pass because he knew that what he was doing before didn't work. He let Marcelo pass. He put him back in the guard and he swept him. And then now that's a different point. This 3-2, different points now. That's different than 2, then 3, then 3-2. And it became, he still ended up losing the second one, but it was very, very close. And that was in the same day. That was in the same day. So when you're positional training, that's what I mean. It's good to stop when you are in the understanding of this is going to get worse if I don't stop. You only get that through experience, or coaching will tell you, like, you get that through experience. You don't get that by magically learning, like, if I turn here, I'm going to get my back taken. You get that through experience. All athletes should just keep going, never stop moving. And when something bad happens, they're like, yeah, if there's something technical that you can use to stop that something bad happen, great. If it's a knowledge that, man, I'm so wrapped up here that if I move, it's bad. And so now I'm going to stop and I'm going to wait, because now my defenses are such that when this person moves, I'm going to re-guard him, rather than I'm going to move before my defense is set and I'm going to get my back taken. So this is an important thing to understand. Deep levels of learning on like how to apply positional rounds so that it works for people and it makes people better.
That's incredible, man. Shawn, have you ever considered making an instructional just about coaching? Because I mean, your passion for this is awesome, man.
Yes, I'm actually underway with a very finite group. I'm trying to get a beta group going of coach training, and I'm exceptionally passionate about coaching, because I did coaching as my minor in college, and so I'm exceptionally passionate. I'm not only passionate about coaching, but I'm passionate in jiu-jitsu because we're unaccredited. I'm passionate about pointing out flaws in other. I'm flawed, but I will continue learning, and I will continue learning, and I'll continue learning. If I have a flaw, I'll learn it and make it better. But I am passionate about like what's working at the highest levels. I've seen it. I've been a part of it. I've been a part of George St. Pierre's camp. I've been a part of Gordon's. I've learning and from the progression of white to black. I've been a part of Henzo's. I've been a part of Matt Serra's. I mean, dude, I've been a part of world-class learning and world-class camps. I know what it takes. And then I've learned coaching, and I've learned these things also through college and like other people learning it. And then I go and now I can study and speak the lingo, and I don't talk in big fine words. I don't think that's necessary. I think it's like, hey man, I can speak it like layman terms. I can make you understand this, even if it's something complicated. My job as a coach is to help you understand it, not to speak so that you can't understand it so I sound intelligent. That's not what my job is. And so I'm exceptionally passionate about coaching and what I see and ways to make people better, and also like what I believe is the difference in making people better. This training methodology is good for in the beginning, and for kids. This training methodology, you need to get away from that and start to excel in technical learning to become world class, real world class. I'm not talking about world class like winning trials is world class. I'm talking about like elite level. You're on the top and you're going to stay on the top forever. Our conquest for efficient technique should never stop, because we can hold it. We're humans. We can hold it. We can hold massive amounts of data, and we're amazing creatures. And you can remember through muscle memory building where your arm's supposed to go. And you don't learn that through experience. You learn this by a great coach, by a great teacher. What you learn through experience is, shoot, man, when I'm moving this way, it feels this way, and I got to keep this elbow wide. That's what you learn through experience. You don't self-learn where your elbow should be unless you're an anomaly. You learn where your elbow should be on the mount because someone says, that's where your elbow goes. It's proven that it's the most scientific way and the best way, the most efficient way to get out of the mount is your elbow needs to be there. If your elbow is not there, you're going to have a long day of getting out of the mount. You learn that by someone who's better than you, more experienced than you, and efficient, teaching you proper technical methods. But there's a time and place for that, right? It's not all in the beginning. I don't vomit technique on the beginner, because they're going to be like, what the hell do I do? My karate, one of my karate teachers said the best thing ever. I'm very fortunate to have had really open mind karate teachers, and they were amazing. They set me up, I believe, for how I am today. One of them said, "You want to show somebody nothing, show them everything." And I think that's a very valuable quote. And so I don't vomit 20 million technical things to somebody. I give it to them when they're ready for it. But like, by God, it's going to be the best technique that I know how to do. And when you hear me coaching in the corner, you're going to hear me telling people exceptionally detailed things when they need it. When they need it. Because my students don't need it so much. They know what it is. They know where their elbow should be when they're mounted. They know that. And I can say, okay, left side elbow on the hip, left side elbow on the hip. Then they do it. It's not good job, great job. You're doing great. You're doing great. That's cheerleading. That's not coaching, and that's not technical. But like, oh yeah, Ryan, you fired me up, man. I'm very passionate about making the best. That's what I'm here for in Nashville. Like, it's going to be a very short time before I can devote, because, you build gyms and it takes time, right? It takes time to build gyms. I'm trying to build my online teaching presence more so I can make ends meet different, but like, it's a very small time before I'm going to dedicate every single ounce of my energy to coaches and competitors. And of course, my general students, that's just a byproduct of, I love the jiu-jitsu community. And then when that happens, if I don't make world champions, I'm going to freaking punch myself in the face. But you need devoted people too. You also have to have exceptionally devoted. That's the variable, right? If I don't have individuals that are devoted to being, then you're not going to make a world champion. You're not going to do that. No matter how great a teacher you are, you need devoted individuals for that.
By the way, guys, speaking of a great instruction, Shawn has one of our best-selling instructionals on the topic we were covering earlier on body locks. I want to make sure we plug this. It's called Body Lock the World by Shawn Williams. It's available right now at bjjfanatics.com, along with several other instructionals he has there as well. So go check it out at bjjfanatics.com. Shawn, how is the school going in Nashville? You were talking about all the ways that you teach and the way that you present jiu-jitsu to your students. How's the school going? And tell us a little about that.
School's going great. It's all relative. I have a very dedicated group of competitors, and it's become a great environment for me to test myself as a coach as well. And we were talking a little bit about training methodologies and what making training the most efficient way to learn, and not just building people fast. Because like I said, the difference between building somebody fast and building somebody that's world class and will stay world class. That's what I like. And I tell all my athletes the same. I'm like, man, my goal is to make you world-class everywhere in grappling, and in MMA, we have a couple guys, and it's to make you world-class like that. And that's not always like a 2-year, we're on a 4-year cycle right now, my first group of competitors. And it's really coming through nicely right now. And because we fill these training methodologies up. We talked about a little bit of like the positional rounds and how we use that. I'm also a huge advocator of competitors, especially, but everyone using active drilling. I still call it active drilling, right? Passive drilling is when you learn your muscle memory. Active drilling is when you train with somebody of lesser experience. We've talked about that a little bit before. It's so important for your training. That's kind of where everything comes together in that contextual sense, and where you can start eliminating hesitations, because you can do the move through the whole sequential movement set to its entirety, is when you can control the environment. I only define drilling as a controlled environment. That's what I define drilling as, because it's really broad. The definition of drilling is just like something you do in repetitive state. Like, dude, that's horrible parameters for the definition of drilling. So I understand why people don't like the word drilling, but if you set parameters on what you're doing, you can really start talking the same lingo. Even if somebody says one word and you say the other, if you start defining it, you might go, oh, we're talking about the same thing. Sweet, we're talking about the same thing. Very cool. But then I'm a big advocate of active drilling, which is training with lesser experienced people to really start bringing about the technical side and also eliminating hesitation and pause. That also is a positional rounds of full training, which is 2 high level people or equal level people doing full training with positions. And then, as I mentioned, we don't stop in turtle and we don't stop in submissions, but that also helps eliminate hesitation when you're going through those scenarios. And then we do all full rounds of training for my group. What we're doing right now, because we don't gamify training right now, there's all sorts of, you can do task-based training all that you want, but if you want to build somebody that's world-class and they're world-class first, we leave strategy and tactics off the table. I've talked to all my competitors and all of them want to be finishers. And so when you want to have finishers in the room, they have to behave that way. You have to behave that way. You have to compete that way. And tactics and strategy have no place for finishing. Tactics and strategy are for winning. It's to be a better winner. And that's important last. If you don't ever get the skill sets and the level that you need to submit people, and have tried and been there, done that, then strategy and tactics, like that's where you can shine. And then if you are a finisher and then you put strategy and tactics, that's what we saw Gordon do in ADCC. It just like, dude, holy crap. He just made everybody look silly. Like, good Lord. And so those are the last pieces of that pyramid. So I try to build my athletes up to that level, and enthusiasts as well. And then we do some situational training, although I try to get this like a single leg, for instance, but I try to make that a piece of positional rolling so that it's bigger than just one little tiny thing. I try to make it a little bit of a bigger picture so that they don't stop or hesitate or anything like this. And so then we try to build from that complete person that's good feet to floor, not stopping, not hesitating, know where they go. And this just takes time. It takes real time.
As a coach, what are the benchmarks you're looking for your athletes to hit as they're moving along, say from white belt to purple belt? Like what are the technical benchmarks you're looking for along the way?
So we look at their goals. Obviously, I want to help them achieve their goals and if competition, most of these guys are competitors. So that's a big one on their goal set. So we always go, we look at, and then of course you come back, you get feedback, you have data. Competitions are tests, and the best way to get feedback is through testing. So, I mean, if you went to English school, you're learning English in school. If you never had any tests, I mean, you could speak English in real life and understand if you're getting better. How about math? We don't use math every day. So if you, not everybody does, but if you didn't have math tests, you may not understand that if you're even getting better or not, or it may not even push you to retain it, but that's a separate thing. But those are the tests. They go out, do their tests. We come back, look at feedback, win or lose, doesn't matter. And we try to make them technically better. Where they were short before, we fix that up. And then they go about their merry way, go compete again. Is everything getting better? And you can see them. I mean, you can see everybody little by little getting better and better. Elbows are in where they should be. Hooks are in the right place. They're doing the right things. They're making combinations. All these things just start to fall into place over time. And they know what they're doing. You know, Ryan, it's just like if I fish for you, you have food for a day. If I teach you how to fish, you have fish. So I'm teaching these guys as well the same things, like what do they need to know in these things? Now, all competitors don't need to know everything. But certainly a lot of mine like to be well educated in the environments that they play in, even if that's not what they use.
That's awesome. Well, man, obviously your students are in tremendously good hands. They're all in a very blessed position to be learning from you. And it's great because, there's a lot of people who are great teachers and who teach well, but there's a difference between someone who's really passionate about the art of teaching. That really is a different level. I feel like that's where you're at. And so I really think it's great that you're going to also be sharing this with other coaches out there that want to learn how to do the same thing. So super cool stuff, man. Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Shawn, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show, man. You're always so generous with your insight and your knowledge, and you always bring great content to the table. I appreciate everything you talked about development, and I'm also glad we got to give some attention to the more advanced practitioners out there who tune into the show. You're welcome back anytime you want to come back on. You're always welcome here, sir.
Love it. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Shawn, it's really easy to do so. You can find him on all social media platforms, Shawn Williams BJJ. That's for Instagram and Facebook. He's also got Shawn Williams BJJ on YouTube, so make sure you guys subscribe and hit the little bell icon to get notified when he adds new content. His website is ShawnWilliams.com. That's a great place to keep up with all coaching materials, seminars, commentary appearances, and all the things that he does. Also, if you guys are ever traveling through Nashville, Tennessee, he's got one of the best schools in the whole state. So make sure you guys drop in, get some great training, tremendously good people over there. So drop in and train. If you can't make it to Tennessee, you can learn from Shawn anywhere in the world here at BJJFanatics.com. He's got several instructionals with us. The one we discussed today was Body Lock the World, which is one of our best sellers on the site. So if that's an area of your game you're looking to improve, you got one of the best in the world showing you how to do it. And Shawn, I really do appreciate your time once more. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you.
Of course. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.